If you are a marketer that dreams about having a budget to run LinkedIn ads, but 2025 is not going to be the year that comes true, then I've got good news for you, because in today's episode, I'm going to teach you the top organic strategies your business needs to follow to crush LinkedIn in 2025. G'day everyone, it is Coach Michelle J. Raymond. Welcome back for another episode. And I've been having lots of fun over the last few weeks, deep diving into strategies and tactics that marketers can use to crush LinkedIn in 2025. And today's episode is no different. If you're just joining and this is the first time you've ever listened to the podcast, welcome. You're going to want to go back and listen to the last 3, 4, 5 episodes because there is so many great tips, especially last week's one. I had a LinkedIn insider share their tips directly for what LinkedIn recommends that you do in 2025. Check it out and let me know what you think. But the reason that I'm doing this is, I myself in my own business have had to do so many things the scrappy way. I don't have big budgets. I don't have huge teams. It is just myself and Lil. And what we've been able to achieve in this business without using LinkedIn ads, I think is pretty phenomenal. And I'm able to help lots of other businesses do exactly the same thing. And there's so many opportunities there. It's easy to be disappointed or jealous of those that might have big LinkedIn budgets. But the thing that I took away from last week's episode with Robin O'Connell, the LinkedIn Insider, was that 3 out of 4 LinkedIn ads are completely useless. Like, how crazy is that? They're not generating any ROI. So if you think you're missing out, it could be worse. You could be burning your cash on ads that are ineffective. But today's episode, I've spread this into 3 different sections. The reason that I've done this is because I honestly believe that the businesses that will crush LinkedIn in 2025 are not the ones that on January 1st go a million miles an hour out of the gate, only to be burnt out by the end of January. In my experience with my clients, when we just bite off small pieces and compound this over time, this is where the magic happens. And I'm going to share my secret tactics that you can implement in your business. Before I go into the top organic strategies you want to know about in 2025, here's a quick word about our podcast sponsors, Metrical. If you haven't checked them out yet, this is going to give you so many reasons why that's the tool that your business needs in 2025. Metrical has released a few new features that help social media managers to centralize their management and content planning. And 2 new features include Google Drive and Canva integrations, bringing your content assets directly into the planner. So this eliminates the need to jump across multiple platforms and tabs. A huge win for my LinkedIn community is Metrical's expanded LinkedIn demographic analytics. You can now view followers by industry, function, seniority, and company size. And this data is crucial for creating content that connects with your ideal audience. Also, if you currently add links to your LinkedIn content, you can now enable or disable link previews within Metrical's planner. Metrical just keeps on rolling out new great features to create a truly comprehensive user experience. Read the full article with Metrical's latest product updates in the show notes. Okay, let's get into step 1, the foundations. The most important resource that you need to manage in 2025 if you really want to crush LinkedIn is your time, especially if you're in a small team. Time is money, as the saying goes, and nothing is truer when it comes to your LinkedIn organic strategies. When it comes to spending time on LinkedIn, the smarter you are around how you're going to allocate that time, the better the results that you're going to be generating. So if you haven't sat down and thought, okay, let's nut out a content plan where you can focus on not creating mountains and mountains of content for the sake of it, but you're really going to have a look at what is the type of content that strategically the business creates that is going to generate the most amount of brand awareness, generate those lead opportunities, and convert into sales. When we slow down and stop doing content just for the sake of it, which I think is what happens in a lot of businesses, the goal is create more content, not create content in service of our audience, not create content that will convert into paying clients. This, I think, is why when I'm talking about my growth framework to clients, the G in growth is game plan. If you don't have one for your content strategy, a few episodes ago, we spoke about this in a lot more detail, but you want high quality, engaging content that is interactive with your audience to help you start building a community. The best tip that I can give you when it comes to budgeting your time to create highly engaging, converting content is to make sure you put time in your calendar to set time aside to prioritize this work. Ever found when you don't put it in there and then meeting after meeting goes in over the top and all of a sudden you've now got more work on your plate than what you can actually physically get done in any one week? And there's so many stats that I've read and feedback on forums where marketers are drowning. They are so overwhelmed, especially content marketers, because they're spending up to 33 hours per week is what I read in one of these surveys to create the content to keep up with the demands within their businesses. This is crazy. So if you don't allocate time in your calendar, you've got zero chance of making this happen. And really, you're setting yourself up for failure. And that is not what I want for any of you listeners. The second thing you're going to do is you are going to invest some of your time into having conversations with your other teammates, whether that is the founder, whether that is the team from sales, whether that is your customer service team. It's time to start having conversations with people to let them know what you're up to, what you're trying to achieve, and how they can help. By setting some time aside in the beginning to have these conversations, and you're not asking anything of these teammates, you don't want them to do anything at this early stage, you're getting into their shoes, understand their KPIs, understand what their challenges are. And as a group, what is the business trying to achieve? And again, coming back to that game plan, how are you aligning this LinkedIn strategy with the business goals? It's really important that you have these early conversations with your teammates to make sure that later on, when we talk about things like employee advocacy in phase 2, that it's not something that just comes out of the blue that people just push back on straight away, right? So we're bringing people along on the journey here. The third thing when we're setting up a really strong foundation is to begin the work to set up a foundation of page advocacy. If you missed the episode on page advocacy, I will share the link to that in the show notes because I think it's really important and a new concept that I'm trying to spread to as many company page admins as possible. So no more just posting content and hoping and praying. It's time for the page to get active. This is such a fundamental shift away from the employees do all the work and the page reaps the rewards. In this case, what we're going to be doing is making sure that the page is actively supporting the employees. Marketers, by spending the time up front to allocate your time, to get involved in conversations, to plant the seeds with your colleagues, and also begin the process now of practicing getting your page out there and getting it actively liking and commenting is really the foundations that you need before we move into phase 2. Let's move into phase 2. And phase 2 is all about how do we build on the foundation that we've already set in phase 1, and that comes with employee advocacy. So this is where we're going to need more help from our teammates. This is where you get them actively involved. This is where you're having conversations with them to find out how could you create a piece of content via the company page that would help support them get to the goals that they're trying to achieve? Often this could be simple content like answering frequently asked questions with the content, taking away some of those common objections that the sales team might be coming up against, putting out content that speaks to common customer service questions. This is where we move into the phase where we ask our teammates for help and support. And I think if you want to crush LinkedIn organically in 2025, you need help from your teammates. And it doesn't matter whether it's just a small team with a few people or a much bigger business, but you work closely with other people in a few departments. Trying to do it alone as a page admin is a one-way ticket to driving yourself crazy because LinkedIn are doing no favors for company page content, and that is not going to improve in 2025. The thing that you can control is working with your team. This is where you are going to ask them, when you see a company page post, I would like you to like and comment or possibly repost that to your audience. It's a big ask for some people. Take what you can get. Many might be comfortable with just liking. Some of them, a comment is going too far. But the difference here is we set it up in the foundation to let them know why this is important. We are now showing them that, hey, if you support the page will support you and your goals as well. Teamwork really does make the dream work when it comes to LinkedIn. In phase 2, it is really important to start working as a team within the business. The more that you align this with the business goals, so everybody's winning, the easier this is. When it comes to leveraging employee advocacy as a tool in 2025, create some content that your colleagues would be proud to share. If it makes you cringe, imagine what it does to people who aren't involved. Find a cool way. Use some interesting and unique different ways to communicate messages. Have some fun. You know, we can have fun on LinkedIn. This is another public service announcement. Doesn't have to be boring. Doesn't have to be buttoned up, stiff, professional content anymore. We're here on a social media platform. If you create content that you enjoy, that your colleagues enjoy, then your audience will enjoy it as well. And most importantly, you're going to stand out from your competition, which I think is going to be key to getting success in 2025. In phase 2, the other thing that we're doing, we're going back and checking analytics. Is what we're trialing and testing working? And I'm very confident that if you now have a mini team of employee advocates and people that are helping to support you, and you're using the page to support the team, then you are all going to start winning and see those results. It's an important piece of the puzzle to measure where you're at and notice these small improvements over time. That is what's going to keep you going. That is going to be your assurance that you're on the right track and the high quality content that you're creating is resonating with the audience. There's no point putting all this effort into content and having it fall flat with your audience. Don't get so caught up in you like it. It works for you. It's, absolutely within your brand guidelines. It follows the templates. If it's not working, it's not working. Don't be stubborn about this. Sometimes we have to let go of our ideas and really try something different. And that can be a challenge. So that is my challenge to you marketers that are out there. What is something that you are prepared to let go of, that you know isn't working, and something that you're willing to give a try? Let's talk about phase 3. And phase 3 is going to be where all of the efforts that you've put into building and planning in phases 1 and 2 are really going to come to fruition and pay you back. This is where you start to get a return for your own time that's been invested in setting up some of these other relationships and partnerships within the business, where your content planning is going to pay off. What am I talking about? I'm talking about thought leadership. This is the part where when you have those people within your business who are subject matter experts, or maybe you have some people that are really charismatic and just leaders within the industry, people seem to flock to them and listen to what they have to say. When you can start to bring in and leverage the personal brands of these people and the knowledge of these people, then all of a sudden your job becomes easier again, because you are going to be putting the spotlight on these people. You are going to be asking them to create content and thought leadership pieces and bring their opinions and their advice and their knowledge all together. When you start leaning on these subject matter experts for higher level content, it starts to free some of your time back up again. You can reinvest that into reviewing your content plan. Is the content strategy executing as you intended? Are there some gaps? Are there some things that you've learned along the way that you can change things up? So as you gain some time back, reinvest it because it will continue to pay you dividends over time. You might actually be surprised when we get to phase 3 that people within your team who now understand why you're trying to do what you're doing, can appreciate that what you're doing is trying to help them be successful, will actively want to participate more. This is why phase 1 and 2 are so important. We can't just jump over them and go running straight to our colleagues and say, I need you to do this. Why? Because I'm trying to achieve my KPIs and it's really important. And thought leadership is where it's at in this year and beyond. When everything you've been building on gets you to this point where you can leverage the subject matter experts within your business to create thought leadership content, that is going to free some time up for you to then review the content plan and strategy. Are the tactics working? What have you learned about your audience? What resonates with them best? What could you adjust going into the future? What can you repurpose that's really working well? When you understand what is working, then you can double down on it and do more content like that. When you understand what's not working because you've had that experimental mindset, that can be equally as important, but don't be afraid to give things a go. The reason that it's really important to get these thought leaders out there and shining on LinkedIn is because there's so much research that shows that 80% of the buying decision is done before B2B buyers are reaching out to your sales team to have a conversation. So they're already researching long before you even know about it. This is why it's important to build up your brand and your brand awareness and your thought leadership to help people make decisions, especially those that are observing from afar that you don't even know exist yet. There is nothing better than later on when they're talking to a salesperson and they mention, hey, I saw this post, I saw this content, this is why I'm reaching out. This is the part where you get to high five yourself that everything you've been doing in phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 really pays off, because you know that the planning that you did up front to ensure that you had a robust content strategy, the fact that you built collaborations with your teammates, you've been building page advocacy and employee advocacy in tandem for even bigger results. This is how you crush LinkedIn in 2025. 3 tips to wrap up today's episode. Number 1, put time in your calendar. If you do not make this a priority, it's not going to happen to the level that you need to get results on LinkedIn in 2025. Number 2, teamwork makes the dream work. Get your colleagues into the conversation much earlier and don't just talk about what they can do for you. It's also what can the page do to support them to achieve their goals. Number 3 tip is stick to the plan and review the data. What is working, what's not, and adjust accordingly. There you have it, listeners. That is exactly how you are going to crush LinkedIn in 2025 without paid ads. But for those of you who do have a budget for paid ads, the good news is for you, I have just booked a podcast episode with the one and only AJ Wilcox, who is coming in to share what is working for paid strategies going into 2025. We also have Robert Rose coming back on again to talk about some really interesting research that his team did into content marketing and marketers into 2025. Listeners, not only is it AJ Wilcox and Robert Rose coming on the show, but there is one more guest, the final guest of the year, that I am going to be fangirling so bad on that episode that you don't want to miss it, because this person has been on my podcast guest bucket list for a number of years now, that I look up to this person. I am inspired to be better. And that person is the one and only Anne Handley. So if you are not subscribed to the podcast, make sure that you give it a follow. You do not want to miss these upcoming episodes. When I tell you I want your business to succeed in 2025 on LinkedIn, I mean it, and I'm bringing the best of the best. So until next week, cheers.